Hi friends, I'm Andy Greene, and today I'm uncovering an old interview with my grandma because this is the Naked Man Podcast. My grandma was a badass. I'm not sure I ever witnessed doubt on her face. She worked in the probation department for kids and adults her entire working career. And when I was a kid, she scared the shit out of me. I realize now it's in part because she treated me like an adult. Unlike everyone else, she called me Andrew, and she didn't have patience for picky eaters or social anxiety. She had a horrifying refrigerator, and her cat Sushi had the smelliest poops of any cat I've ever encountered. She loved to travel, to collect jewelry and clothes from around the world. She loved musicals and Carol Burnett, and I wished I had watched more Carol with her. Every year, she'd send me a much too big for what was inside box of clippings from the San Francisco Chronicle sports page about the Oakland Athletics or the San Francisco Giants or the 49ers because she knew I loved sports. Knowing my sister loved horses, she sent Robin a book about horse diseases. She was 12 years old, not looking to be a veterinarian. Grandma tried. Grandma cared. I got closer to her when she was older, softer, when we understood each other better. Whenever I visited, she took me to dim sum in a gloriously tacky strip mall, and it was delicious, an experience unlike any other because it's the closest I've felt to experiencing true freedom. Grandma let me stop anyone I wanted to order anything I wanted, even if it was just another variation of shrimp. So long as we got her some broccoli, she was happy. The only part I didn't like, I was nervous every single time to ask for utensils. Even today, I'm pathetic with chopsticks. But I think I finally earned my stripes the day I ordered and ate chicken feet. After I moved to Los Angeles, we shifted our conversations to films. And she invited me, without fail, every single month up to downtown San Jose for Mystery Movie Club, a monthly film series where they watched new and old films that were either not yet released or couldn't be released because of rights issues. They often had the filmmakers visit. It was legit. And I went up a few times, planning my months around it. I don't think I've ever seen Grandma more excited than when I helped her get a trivia question right. Her group of biddies and duffers hadn't ever gotten a question right until I whispered a correct answer in her ear, and she immediately raised her hand. After winning, she squealed, "Andrew!" and sent me to collect her well-earned prize of, I have no idea, probably sunglasses or a shirt or a gift card to a crappy restaurant. And when I didn't travel up there, she'd call me and tell me about the movie they had seen. If I didn't answer, she'd leave me voicemail reviews that I'll intersperse into the following interview. I had the wonderful honor to get to know Grandma as a person, rather than as just a grandparent. Every time we spoke, I was struck by her infinite number of stories that felt like fiction. Everyone probably believes their grandparents should write a book, but I told that to Grandma often. And to her credit, late in her life, she did start to put pen to paper. But that wasn't how she communicated. Grandma, maybe a little like me, was an orator. So one time, I arranged to go up and interview her. One of my 178,986 ideas at the time was to write something about Grandma, and she, of course, couldn't be more tickled. On the 5-hour drive over, I bought a $20 Sony voice recorder from Best Buy, and within moments of my arrival, she had poured a scotch and we started talking about her life. Because of course she did, Grandma insisted on holding the recorder, tapping it often with her long nails. Believe me, it gives the audio flavor, like oyster sauce on chicken feet. So without further ado, meet Nancy Bartlett Greene tell her life story.
Okay. So, Andrew, where do we start with a story? I don't know how I want to hold this thing, but I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
What do you want, the story of my life?
The story of your life?
Oh, all right, my story of my life. I was born in San Francisco on September 13th, 1930, during the Depression. My mother, who I think was a single woman, gave me up for adoption. And 3 months later, I was adopted by Captain Edward Phelps Bartlett and his wife, Elva King Bartlett. I grew up on 16th Avenue in the Sunset District, and I went to private schools. and in high school graduated from the Sarah Dix Hamlin School for Girls, which is still in existence on 2120 Broadway in San Francisco. My early childhood is fraught with fear on the part of my parents because my natural mother found out who adopted me and threatened to kidnap me. Therefore, my parents hired a private investigator. His name was Mr. Rakestraw, and I can remember him clearly because he used to twirl me around somehow and put me on his shoulders and take quarters out of my ears, which I never, ever could figure out how he was so clever to do that. He also laid his gun on the top of the mantel, which I thought was a little odd, even as a child. Anyway, apparently this Mr. Rakestraw followed me around from time to time, and this is why I went to girls' schools, because I was always picked up and delivered home.
So he was like a bodyguard?
He was like a bodyguard, but he was also looking into my natural mother, whose name was known to my parents, but it is not known to me now as we speak.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So eventually the threat of kidnapping me vanished, and I was allowed more freedom to walk places by myself and so forth. However, my natural mother did call me. She called me when I was about 13 years of age. I answered the phone, and she said, "This is your mother." And I said, "I thought you were at the grocery store." And she says, no, I'm your real mother. Don't you know that you're adopted? And I said, yes, I know I'm adopted. And I said, and if you're my real mother, never contact me again. And I hung up the phone.
Oh, wow.
And I did that because I was sort of afraid of her. Anybody that would threaten to kidnap me, even though I was a grown girl, I didn't want any more family than I had, and I had to contend with as it was.
Yeah.
So that took care of my life pretty much all through high school, I guess. There wasn't anything startling happened. And then when I graduated at the age of 17, my father, Captain Bartlett, who had been ill and had cancer of the prostate, and in those days, the operation for this and so on was much different than it is today, and it left him crippled. And he walked with a cane, and he was very upset over this, and he fell a couple of times, which made him really upset over this. So one night, we were having dinner, and he picks up the gravy boat, and his hands shake, and the gravy goes all over everything. And my mother says, "Oh, my God, let me, from now on, put gravy on your plate." And he got up, left the table, went upstairs to his bedroom, and shot himself. I went up there, saw what happened, went screaming out of the house, and 3 doors down was a retired Navy doctor who was summoned immediately to the house, but there was no hope of saving my father. He shot himself in the heart. And I guess that's really something that I've had to struggle with all my life is the fact that my father sort of deserted me, I felt, by doing this. I never got along with my mother. He didn't get along with his wife. I begged him many times to leave her, and he and I could live together very nicely and peaceably, which he was very old-fashioned and refused to do. So anyway, that left me with my mother, who I didn't get along with, and I don't know who ever was able to get along with her, to tell you the truth.
What was her name?
Elva. So anyway, she didn't want me really to go to college because she didn't want anybody to be smarter or better educated than she was in the family, which is an odd way of looking at things. But she had gone to the 8th grade and was self-made and did very, very well in buying and selling real estate. I was not interested in that kind of work. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't anything to do with what my mother was doing. So she told me at one time that any school I applied to for college that accepted me, I could go to. I started applying to places I'd never even heard of, like Southern Texas and Michigan State, and because I was as far away as I could go, and of course got accepted at all of them. And then she refused to let me go to any of them. So that left me kind of hanging in the air. I got a summer job at GMAC, and
what's GMAC?
General Motors Acceptance Corporation, yeah, okay. And so anyway, I somehow met this young man. His name was Dave Leary, and we got engaged. He was, never, it was a situation that never would have worked out, but I had an engagement ring. And I really didn't want to get married. I just wanted to get away. So a family friend called my mother and told her about the University of Pacific, which seemed to fit everybody's needs. I would be away, but I'm close. And I wouldn't be marrying Dave Leary, which was okay with me too. So I broke my engagement to Dave Leary, and eventually, late in the season, wound up at the University of Pacific, having to make up the work from September. I think I got there about the last of October or something. But anyway, they accepted me, and I had to play catch-up, which I did successfully. And I must tell you that living at the University of Pacific probably was the happiest days of my life. I loved the school. I was in a sorority called, I think they now call it's Alpha Theta Tau was when I was there, but the name now, or the Alpha Phi's or something like that. I don't know what it is. But I loved going there, had a wonderful time. And my sociology professor called me in one day and said, you're working at the a dress shop down the street. And I said, yes. And he said, well, that's not going to get you anywhere. He says, I've decided to give you a job in the juvenile hall. And I said, oh, well, I'd like that, you know. And you won't get paid, you won't have any money, but you will be able to work there, and if you ever want to be a probation officer or something like that, you've got a leg up. Well, my shift was from, I forget, like 4 to 9, or no, it would be more like 5 to 10 or something. Anyway, at Pacific, you had lockout in the sorority house, so you couldn't come in after 10 o'clock or something. Okay. And of course, I didn't have a car to get to the juvenile hall, but he arranged that also. There was another married man that was doing the same thing I was, so he picked me up and took me home, and we had to get special approval from the dean of girls to let me in the house after hours. Yeah. Although, frankly, I had climbed in and out of the house after hours on many occasions that nobody knew about. But anyway, when I worked in the juvenile hall...
So it's kind of like an internship? Or
it would be. I say it would be like an internship. Yeah. And so I worked there, and I really enjoyed, this was the juvenile hall that I was in, and I really enjoyed everything about it, and thought maybe I would like to be a probation officer. And I felt that I would needed to go to graduate school then, because all my undergraduate work had been in psychology, because at that point I thought wanted to be a psychologist, but I had to get a PhD, and I didn't want to get a PhD at that time. So anyway, when I graduated from UOP, on the day I graduated, a boy that I knew a little bit, not very much, anyway, asked me to go out that evening. His name was Paul Greene. And so I didn't have anything else to do, so I said, okay. And we went out, and then he kept calling me all the time, and he told me that he had been accepted at graduate school at Ohio State. He'd got his master's in chemistry at UOP and got an assistant professor job or something similar at Ohio State, and he was leaving in September or the end of August to go to Ohio State, and so on and so forth, which I thought that was a great idea, and I wanted to go to graduate school. So I went to UC Berkeley and was interviewed by a woman who, frankly, I didn't like, and she didn't like me. Feeling was mutual, and she says, "You're much too young to be in graduate school." She says, "We really prefer people that have worked in the field for 2 or 3 years. And we have more people applying to graduate school than we can take." And I said, well, I want to go to graduate school here in the School of Social Work. And I said, my grades are all A's. I graduated cum laude from college. And I said, if you do not take me in because of my age, which was 20 at that point, I graduated from college about 3 years. I said, I will do something about discrimination based on age. Well, that set her back on her heels a little bit, and I got accepted. And I started graduate school, and eventually got my MSW there. And that's Master's of Social Work. Yeah, Master's of Social Work. However, in about 6 months, Paul Greene came back from Ohio, and he said, I can't afford to keep running back and forth between Ohio and California to see you. He says, I really do think we should get married, and that you should come with me to Ohio, and you can maybe go to graduate school at Ohio State or something. And they did have a very well-known MSW program there. Well, okay, so I got engaged, and he went back to Ohio, and I went back to graduate school. He came home for Christmas, and we got married. I quit graduate school. Eventually, we went back to Columbus, Ohio, where he was in the chemistry or physics department. And I didn't know a thing about. I've never been in a state where they have weather changes and things like that. Well, that was an issue.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I went to the probation department there, not knowing a thing about it. And a judge met me, and he said, "What is it you want?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a probation officer here, and I've had previous experience in the juvenile hall in Stockton." And I have, I'm a college graduate, and I have some graduate school training. Well, I can tell you that's more education than anybody in the whole building except the judge had. Because in those days, back in Ohio, things were kind of not up to date. Anyway, they hired me immediately. And I worked there for almost 2 years till my husband got out of school. And I was
just walked right in as
walked right off the street and got a job. So then I quit. We came back to California, and we lived in Oakland for a period of time while he worked for Shell Development. And I, by this time, had one child, Stephen, and I was a stay-at-home mom at that point for a while. And one day, Paul said to me, here's an advertisement in the back of a professional journal. They're looking for chemists, physicists, down in Mountain View at a place called Hewlett-Packard. And he said, I haven't had that much experience to walk into this kind of a job description thing. And I said, well, you'll never know if you don't try it, of course. So he tried it and got accepted and then we moved, where were we then? Oh, we were in Oakland. So then we moved down to Silicon Valley and lived in Mountain View. By this time, I had another child shortly thereafter. His name is Kevin. I'm still a stay-at-home mom at this point, and we're living on Cuesta Avenue in Mountain View. Well, Paul got an offer a big stock option offer, but he had to pay quite a bit of money up front to get it through Hewlett-Packard. In fact, they actually kind of set him up in his own business with another friend of ours called Erwin Wonderman, who was brilliant but eccentric. But Paul and Erwin got along very well, and they went into a little business with Hewlett on the side, doing something or other, I don't know. And but where did we get the money for this big stock option? So I said, well, I'm really not the type to be a stay-at-home mom, to be honest with you. I would like to go get a job at the probation department here. Well, he didn't like that. He did not want me out. He wanted me at home all the time with the kids. A very old-fashioned way of treating a wife and children, by the way. But anyway, the option was better than his fear, so to speak. So I went down to the juvenile probation department. I didn't even know where it was, down in San Jose. Walked in and was hired. And I worked at the probation department for 20 years, and then I retired, and then I was hired the next day. in the adult probation department in San Mateo, which I just loved. I was a court officer, and I did all the different things probation officers do, and I worked there 20 years. Take a break here.
Yeah.
Try it back and see.
Make sure it's working.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Well, it's still recording, so let's.
Hi, Andrew. It's Nancy. Saw a fabulous movie. You must run. Do not walk. Run to go see Me and the Sick Girl. What was it? What's the middle name? Me, Earl, and the Sick Girl. Bye-bye.
Well, let's see. Where did I end here for a while?
You were talking about the San Mateo for 20 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's, I've spent my whole life in 2 counties in the field of corrections, and I really, really liked my job and was happy with this. And I had good babysitters for the kids, but by that time they were both in school anyway. And I had a sitter that lived right in 2 doors down or something like that. And life went on, and the house wasn't really big enough for us at this point. And Paul wanted to move somewhere, and he didn't like any of the things that he saw. And I found a 2-story house in Mountain View that had a full basement, which is almost unheard of. And he was just overjoyed with that. So we moved to this house, which was not finished being built almost. So I got to choose all the tile and all the colors and all the things, and it was a beautiful house, if I say so myself. And so I'm still working. He's still working. He got the stock option that he wanted.
He's doing like a side thing with Irwin. Is that's what
it was? It's hard for me to remember how it went, but they opened up a little company doing something or other. Don't remember. And then Hewlett Packard knew all about it, of course. And then they did what they did, and then they closed it up, and he went back into the lab at Hewlett Packard.
So it was like a research project.
Yeah, or something like that. I don't really know. So let me see. Well, I guess, I know lots of funny stories about probation or interesting criminals I have known. But I'm trying to think, one of the most tragic things in my life, besides my father's death, was the fact when Kevin was around 3 or 4 years old, and he was in, I wasn't working at that point in probation. Yeah, I was working in probation. But anyway, somehow or other, I remember, I took Kevin for his first day at school. I can remember that. I can remember the dress I had on. I had on a long-sleeved cotton aqua dress. And I'm driving along, and all of a sudden, I feel this bump. And it turns out that a little boy, about 7 years old, ran right in front of the car, and I killed him. I was found to be faultless because he was running across Wolf Road in the middle of the street. He'd gone from the trailer park where he lived across 2 lanes of the highway to a store to buy candy. And he almost missed the school bus, and so he wasn't thinking and just darted across the street. Well, that's one of the most frightening and upsetting things that another horrible thing in my life. I was so terribly shaken up by this that I couldn't go to the funeral for the kid. I just couldn't do it. But Paul went, and we sent flowers, and this and that. An attorney contacted us to see if there was any possibility that this family could sue us, but there wasn't. So it just kind of ended that way. However, it made the newspapers, which I found very upsetting. And my name was in the newspapers about this, and that just made things worse as far as I was concerned. Anyway, moving right along, we're living in the big house at this point. I'm working. The children are in school, and Paul is in charge of the Hewlett-Packard lab. Unbeknownst to me, he meets a woman there. Her name was Kay Malone. And she was a lab technician, married to a Santa Clara sheriff's deputy. She had, I think, 4 children, and of course Paul had 2. And to make a long story short, he wanted to marry her and wanted a divorce. So he moved out, and I filed for divorce, was finally divorced from him, and moved out of the big 3-story really house to something very, very close, but on 1 story, but suitable more for me and the boys. Kay Malone and he, I think, argued all the time or fought or did something, but he didn't marry her, I don't think, until about 7 years later. But it was a shaky situation because Paul came from this ultra-religious background. His father was a Baptist Bible-thumping minister, and they lived in Lodi in this almost near poverty, as far as I'm concerned, situation. And Paul grew up very deprived. He didn't have what everybody else had. And he always had to go on scholarship, and he never had any money. And they had a funny old car that he was allowed to drive once in a while. But when I finally met his parents, our backgrounds were so completely different that I married him too quickly. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing, and that taught me a lesson. I've never, since 1974, I have never remarried. That's the year I got divorced. And he married, eventually came alone. And he took a minor interest in the children. He paid $400 a month child support, which is, nothing really. Yeah. But anyway, one time Stephen is over at Paul's house spending the night or something, and Kay Malone gets sick and dies. And Paul then proceeds to eventually marry somebody else. I can't even remember her name.
Is this Carolyn?
Carolyn, I guess.
That's the...
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, he's still married to Carolyn, I guess. Anyway, after the children became of age, Paul said, the divorce papers said, that he was responsible for any and all monies for the children's education. And if Stephen wanted to get a PhD or a medical degree or whatever he wanted to do, Paul was responsible. Well, Stephen went on and got a master's degree, and Kevin didn't want to go to college, so he lucked out there. After the boys became of age, he lost all interest in them completely. And to make a long story short, neither boy has seen their father in, 20 years, I guess. He's never seen the grandkids, as far as I know.
No, I've seen them.
You've seen him?
Yeah, the last time, I think it's the only time, I don't know how many times I saw him, but I saw him, it was in the early 90s, and I have this really vague memory of his house, and it was on the water, and we played with Batman playing cards. He got me Batman playing cards, and that's the only thing.
Was that where was that located, though?
If you said what the place was, I would know.
Like Little River?
I don't think so. It was on a bluff, on the beach.
I think that's Little River. Yeah,
okay.
In Mendocino County.
Yeah, Mendocino. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he and Carolyn went up there. It's kind of isolated, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. Well, Paul didn't have any friends and didn't particularly care. He was a real loner, and I can understand why that area would, because he doesn't care about the things that I care about. So. Anyway, Stephen took the loss of his father, I think, reasonably well, because his wife Vicky and Stephen were with Paul sometime or other, and Paul was very, very rude to both of them. And Vicky said that that was it as far as she was concerned. So there was no contact, as far as I know, after that between Stephen, Vicky, and Paul. Kevin, however, has repeatedly tried to make contact with his father and has failed miserably because of his father's attitude towards him. The boys think that Caroline has poisoned Paul's mind against his own children because she wants everything left to her and her children. She listens in on the telephone conversations Kevin tries to have with her, and that kind of thing. I stay out of it. I mean, I feel sorry for Kevin because he's so badly treated if he manages to get Paul on the phone. Paul's wife has cancer of the colon, and she's sick. I don't even know if she's alive, to tell you the truth. Kevin has not made contact with his father for over a year, after his father told him that he would never phone him in a million years. That did it for Kevin, and so we have no idea if Paul and Caroline or either one are alive or whatever.
Yeah.
Paul's behavior has been one of the saddest things that I've had to contend with. I never talk it over with the children because I don't want to poison them against him, and but I just can't believe how shabbily he has treated the children. So, do you have any questions for me, really?
There's so much stuff.
There is so much stuff.
I think it's all like, there's like a whole thing, and just in terms of the probation and then who you met and your dealings with that, and then, I mean, especially, I guess it didn't sound like you ever had trouble getting jobs.
No.
But at the same time, you're in probably a job that's male dominated, right?
Yeah, it was basically male dominated. I know that when I was in probation the first time, which would be 50 something or other, 60, there were no women supervisors. And women had to either be in the intake area where they didn't really handle anybody. Well, no,
in and out.
Yeah, in and out, and or they had to work in the girls' unit. But
what does that mean? The girl is that?
Well, women had to handle girls. You see, it was that kind of a thing.
Okay.
But eventually, they became more modern down in Santa Clara County. But I was I guess I was the third woman supervisor ever appointed. I frankly didn't like being a supervisor. I really am more like a street cop than anything else. And I liked best there the intake, because that's when you hit the family and the kid for the first time, and you make what I think is crucial decisions and what goes on after that. So I really liked intake more than supervision. However, come in.
Hi, Andrew. It's Nancy. I had people over last night, and I had just got through knocking over a glass of wine all over everybody. So I wanted to, talk to you a little more. Anyway, I'm delighted you're coming July 17th. When you find out how much your tickets are, I'll send you a check, or however you want to do it, or give you my credit card or whatever. So let me know, and, we have a long time before that happens, and I was hoping to see you sooner, because there's this big, I don't know what it is. It's a comic thing here, and I thought maybe you would be involved in it somehow, but anyway, it's a Star Wars thing, I think. Well, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Well, I guess let's talk about, what did Mr. Rakestraw look like?
He was a white man. I would say he was retired from the San Francisco PD.
I was going to ask if he was like a military.
No,
guy.
he was an policeman that went into private investigating. Yeah, but he was just a tall, 60-year-old, 65-year-old man, very tall from my point of view, and my mother took me many years later down to visit Mr. Rakestraw. He was a very old man by that time. I don't remember too much about it, but he was really happy and surprised to see me.
Oh, that's really cool. Did he have a family, or was he?
I don't know. Probably. I don't know. I don't know anything about him personally. I don't know how they found him. I don't know. Yeah, but my mother wasn't really forthcoming when it came to information about my early childhood. The only thing that she told me was that in the adoption process, my natural mother had made it very clear that I was not to be adopted by a Catholic family. And of course, my real name was Nancy Lee Moore, and I was an Irish Catholic. So what my natural mother's quarrel with the Catholic Church was, I have no idea. But anyway, I was adopted by a Protestant family.
And how long did Mr. Rakestraw work, or what? Like for a couple of years while Was it? I feel like you told me when I was younger, maybe an instance where you actually thought you were getting kidnapped, or something. Was there, or like, was there ever a time where there was danger? Or was just...
Well, I was told that.
Yeah.
I didn't personally sense it, but I was told that, you may not go out alone. You must go to this girls' school where you have transportation or uniforms and so forth. And nobody is to take you out of ambulance school but your parents. And I was, their behavior made me afraid that something was going to happen, and they were afraid something was going to happen. When my natural mother called me that day, my father was in the kitchen and heard the conversation, and I thought he would absolutely have a heart attack. He was so upset. And my mother was so upset. I was the only one that wasn't particularly upset. And people today ask me, how could you possibly say that to your natural mother, that you didn't want any contact with her? And I said, I can't explain that, except that, I didn't want to get involved with her. And I saw no reason to.
So you don't know her name or anything?
I don't.
Like that, and no regrets?
No, I don't have any regrets.
Well, I mean, that's good.
I mean, some children search all the rest of their lives for their parents. Yeah. And that's just the way I am. That was the end of it. I couldn't do that to my adopted parents either, because they would have, oh man, I don't know what.
Yeah, because I mean, you said that they were really upset when that phone call, but you did exactly probably what they would want you to do, which was say, no, don't call me ever again. Yeah. But they were still upset.
Oh, very upset.
The name of the school you went to, Hamlin?
Sarah Dix Hamlin School for Girls. That's what it was called in my day. Now it's called just plain Hamlin School.
When was the last time you went there? Or was it just when
Oh man, I graduated in what, 48?
So that you never like revisited or?
No, you can go. I've gone by it a lot of times because it's one of the old flood mansions.
Is it because it was flooded? Or what was
Flood. It's a name of a wealthy family here, Flood. It's one of the old flood mansions, and it was an enormous mansion turned into a girls' school. And then down the block, there was another enormous mansion that was for Catholic girls. And in the Catholic side, there was I had a friend called Dean Folger from Folger's Coffee.
Oh.
Her sister was killed, I believe, in Helter Skelter.
Oh. Wow.
She was in the house when the Manson family came in, and somehow I think she got killed, if I recall correctly.
Oh, wow.
I went to school with people like Delia Fleischacker Pools and all of that. Louise Hellman, her father was the founder of Wells Fargo. I'm trying to think.
Because you said, I mean, you were born during the Depression, but I guess when you went to school, was the Depression still going? I mean,
No, it was out of the Depression.
And you never had any sort of, because your parents
See,
wealthy.
that's why I was placed with the Bartletts, was because he was making in those days $3,000 a month, which was a huge salary.
Yeah.
He was a San Francisco bar pilot. And he ferried the foreign ships across into the San Francisco bar, past the Farallones. And there were only 12 of them at the beginning, and they were appointed by the, I think by the mayor of San Francisco as an appointment job. I have pictures, and where you're staying, Andrew, of my father, the boat, which was a sailboat at first. It was a boat that eventually a movie star took over when they got more modern. He used to climb out of the tugboat, pilot boat, up the ladder of the side of the ship to the pilot the foreign ship in.
Oh, and then
yeah.
Okay, so you kind of just took them over to get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of ferries them.
Yeah. He was really an interesting man. I mean, I'm so sorry that he decided to end his life like that. He had many interesting experiences. He was torpedoed during the First World War, and being a captain, he was the last to leave the ship. Everybody else was. So when he jumped off the boat, he had 2 guns in one in each side of his pocket, which weighed him down. And when he hit the water, he went down so far that he'd never come up because of the weight.
Oh, wow.
But he did come up, and they pulled him into a life raft. And he was quiet. He loved to read. He was self-educated. Kind of an old school kind of a father. I can remember him giving me only one spanking, and I can remember the incident very clearly. I was maybe 3 years old, and my mother was leaving to go someplace, and I wanted to go. And she says, "You can't go." He was holding me, and I was flailing around, yelling and screaming I wanted to go. My mother left, and I turned around and I bit him. That did not go over very well. He took me in the bathroom and got his hairbrush and gave me a good spanking on my bottom and put me in my room. So when my mother comes home, I said, "I bit my daddy and he spanked me." And she said, "Well, you probably deserved it." Which was true. Never bit anybody after that, ever.
Never bit.
No, but he never, ever spanked me except that one time. He was very, very good to me. I don't know.
I mean, so you, like the way you told the kind of his suicide story was kind of like the indignity of his position, or like of being, because he wasn't as strong as he used to be, or like it was kind of
he was shamed by falling. He couldn't drive. His life was meaningless to him at this. He was sick. He had cancer. My mother was driving us all crazy, of course. She always had. And that's how he solved it.
I mean, I don't know, you probably thought about it a lot, because he was sick and had, did he have much time left if he hadn't? I mean,
well, he was 74 years old.
Oh, okay.
when he shot himself. Today, that's not particularly old. Then it was kind of old. My mother was a lot younger than he was. I think she's about 15 years younger.
Oh, okay.
Or more even.
So when you went to college, did you stop contacting Alva? Or like when did...
No, I mean she contacted me all the time, and no, and of course she paid for my college education, and there were times that she demanded that I come home or something, which I did. But
holidays or just for
holidays or something, you know. But I stayed away from home as much as I possibly could. And when I went to graduate school, she wouldn't let me live in an apartment with another girl or something. I had to live in like a freshman dorm.
Oh, really?
Because she wouldn't let me go anywhere else. And that was very difficult for me because I was really kind of angry about that. And but that's the way she handled things. So the way I handled it, of course, was to go off and get married. One of
Better, of course.
Yeah, frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
It's surprising how much Paul it reminds me of my mother. Psychiatrically, that makes a lot of sense. But you know, that's the way it went.
You mentioned Dave Leary.
Yeah. Poor Dave Leary. Whatever happened to him?
Yeah, I was not like, was he different than Paul, or like what was his?
Well, he was
unique or special. Or
oh no, he was. I forget. He wanted to be a radio announcer.
He
had a very deep voice. And he lived on the avenues where I did, and he was he was a nice-looking Irish guy, and I don't know.
That's right.
What do I know?
That was enough to get engaged.
Well, the ring was really pretty. I hated to get it back. Yeah.
That's like how long did you know him before you got engaged?
Oh, I don't remember.
But like not a long time.
Oh, not a real long time. But his family were middle class, and you know, where Paul's were on the poverty line. The Learys were much closer to the way I was raised. Yeah. So I don't know, but anyway, I didn't care enough about that when I got the opportunity to go to college. Yeah. I have no idea what happened to Dave Leary.
How many people in your sorority do you still keep in contact with, or do you?
I don't, and the reason is they've all died.
They've all passed?
Yeah. My two very best friends, they were both dead from cancer. Oh, well, no, Dee Mooney died from a heart attack, and Beverly Johnson died from cancer. Those were my two friends.
So you stayed in contact with them?
I did until they died, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things, like, I didn't do, Greek life or whatever. Because now it has a different connotation.
Yeah.
It's mostly about partying.
Well, the reason I went to sorority was a hell of a lot nicer place to live.
Yeah, and you have your own like private cooks, right?
Well, they had a cook. Oh, yeah, we had a cook and we had a house mother, and I was in the best sorority, and the girls that were in my sorority were the cream of the crop. I can show you my yearbook.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, and I certainly do. And we were the girls to go to. And I really had fun.
And you graduated in 3 years, you said?
About 3.5, yeah. And I double major psych and soc. But the sociology professor really took a liking to me for some reason. And he was a remarkable man. As a matter of fact, he was a Quaker. And he gave up his job teaching and went into the Japanese internment camps because he was so against interning the Japanese. And then
what was his name, if you remember?
No, can't think of it right now. Might be in one of the books. I don't know.
Professor.
But he was
So he went into the internment camps and
stayed there until they were released, and then he went back and talked at UOP.
Wow.
Oh no, he was, as I said, a Quaker, fine man.
Yeah. And he pretty much got your start, or is what
right?
Helped you to figure out what you wanted.
He sort of did, and I don't know why he chose me, because I wasn't particularly close to him. But
you had all A's.
Huh? You
had all A's, right? That's my
I got all A's. Yeah. I was one of his best students. Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
I was really good in the psych department too, because the psychiatrist that taught abnormal psych and so forth. This was a man that I really liked, and sort of going that way into psychology. But changed my mind and went into social work, which is more sociology, I guess.
And what what appeals to you about, or well, I'm sure it still appeals to you now, but like about sociology or social work and probation?
Well, I liked juvenile until I got awfully tired of it, because you have to deal with the kid and their crummy parents and their crummy everything, relatives maybe, and the parents refuse to take responsibility, and the kid doesn't take responsibility. But after 20 years of nobody taking responsibility, I went to adult, where the adult has to take responsibility. And I can tell you, I certainly like that better, because I was really sick of the kids and their families. But you get a different kind of problem when you deal with adults. But it was much better. And I was in court all the time. I loved the court work. The only alternative to my lifestyle would have been if I'd have gone to law school. And I was married, and Paul would never have permitted that. But
is that something you wanted to do, though, or you thought about it?
Oh yeah, I thought about it. As a matter of fact, I applied to Lincoln Law School, which is the only night law school around here. But Paul said, "No, you cannot do that." So I couldn't do that. But after I got my divorce, I had not finished my MSW. So part of the divorce was that he had to support me and the boys till I got through graduate school, which he did. I did marginally, but I managed.
Were there, like, I guess, what were the cases that?
Oh, I handled any kind of. There's not a type of case I haven't handled, from murder to. I've handled some white collar crime, which is very, very complex, depending on what the scheme was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they thought I did a good job of it and kept giving me these cases, which I hated, and it took me forever. But I guess one of the case I will never forget is Nancy, and she came from a Jewish family. Her mother was a social worker. And she worked for a big stockbroker place. Schwab? I don't know.
Okay.
She took their forms and had them printed and redid them, and she fleeced Schwab and all of her customers out of a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
And they finally caught her at it. And that was a very long, involved case dealing with this woman and her Jewish family. Her siblings hated her. They didn't want her around anybody when they had a bar mitzvah or something. They called me to try to prevent her from showing up, which of course I couldn't do. That wasn't my job. But I mean, I think I wrote a 100-page court report on these people. It just went on and on and on. And she was finally sentenced, and she kept changing lawyers. And then she'd accuse the lawyers of something or other, and they dropped, and they wouldn't take her or finish it, and it was just a mess. And she finally went to state prison, and she deserved it. And she almost ruined her husband's career.
Did he also work on the?
No, he didn't know. She gave him phony bank statements for years. He didn't know shit. She'd have things reprinted. You can't believe what she could. She even had the stamp, some stamp that is necessary to buy stuff. She had one made.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing. Man, he was an Israeli, and he's the only Israeli I've ever met. And man, if they're like him, you wouldn't want to go to war over there, I can tell you. He was a contractor, and he I don't know. He was a very, very tense kind of a guy. But anyway, he got a divorce. He got the girls. She went to prison. And I was very happy when I didn't have to deal with them any longer. Yeah, but it was a long haul going through that. The trial and everything lasted for start to finish maybe 3 months.
So when you're working with the courts and stuff, you're providing them just all your information, kind of your opinion on them?
Well, you have to be very careful when you write these court reports, because you can't write anything that you can't substantiate because the other attorney will get you.
Yeah.
And you have to be fair, and you have to show the good and the bad. If there is, I always tried to throw something good in if I could possibly come up with something. And the judges rely on the court report for sentencing.
So you're kind of, you can be an ally for them if you like them.
Well, I have been an ally. I mean, I had a lot of victims too that I had to stand up with in court because they were so frightened of talking even that it was difficult. But I've had rapers that have raped teenage girls, and I have to deal with the victim, the teenage girl, and the boy or man involved. And it's just been a lot of different kinds of cases like that. And I loved that kind of stuff. I was a really, really good investigator, if I say so myself. I know I was, because the judges always relied on me. And I never kind of lost a case, really. I'd write it up, and they usually went the way. Yeah, I can remember one tiny little tidbit in this thing. This very nice-looking young man was assigned to me because he had, I forget what he had done, to tell you the truth. I think it was some sort of theft kind of thing. And he was like from San Luis Obispo or something, and he got caught in whatever he was doing in San Mateo County. So that's where the hearing was. So he gets an attorney who was also very nice young man from Oakland. And I'm not sure that this young man had ever had a criminal case before. But anyway, the lawyer. So anyway, I get this guy, and he says, and people send in references that are included in the probation report. So I got this one glowing reference from the minister of his church, and it went on and on and on, and that this guy was practically a saint in the eyes of the community. So I call up the minister to tell him I received the letter, and I was a little surprised at the way he handled this thing. Well, it turned out the minister didn't write the letter.
He forged the letter?
He forged the letter. Stole the stationery from the church and forged the letter.
Sounds like a Miss Mizrahi.
So we have a meeting. He comes up from San Luis Obispo. His lawyer comes over from Oakland, and I'm sitting with the two of them in a room, and I say to this man, you certainly got wonderful recommendations from your friends and everything. And he goes, yeah. He says, I really am well liked where I live and so forth. And the young attorney is going, yeah, he's good, and he's just a perfect candidate for probation, and on and on and on. And I said, I want to read you one of the letters to the attorney that came from the minister. He said, okay. So I read him this wonderful letter, and he said, that pretty well sums up my client. And then I say to both of them, he forged the letter. I thought the attorney would faint. He turned white. He was about 30 years old. He turned white and almost fell off the chair. He was so upset.
Did he know, or he was
No, he did not know.
Yeah.
So that went into the court report, that he had tried to forge a letter, and and his attorney had no knowledge of this or anything, and
Hi, Andrew. It's Nancy. I look at my mystery movie thing, and the next one is 10/18. And so please save that weekend and come up, because all of us are looking forward to seeing you then. So let me know what you think. But there's nothing between now and then. 10/18. Bye-bye.
Were there any times, like you said, dealt with murders or anything.
Yeah.
Were there any times that you thought you were in danger or threatened or?
Oh yeah, I've been threatened. And I'll show you the court report, by the way, because I have it in my file with my will that for a period of time I wrote on this top of the paper it's on that if I should be found dead under mysterious circumstances, that this guy was the first person that should be looked up. And he went to prison, and he threatened me from prison. He wrote a threatening letter, and they intercepted it somehow. So when he was released, I was notified that he's loose. And the next thing I know, his parole officer calls me and asks me, did I know where he was? And I said, no, I don't know where he I don't want to know, but I don't know where. Why are you asking me? She said, because we can't find him.
Oh, God.
He's absconded. And I said, well, he's a treacherous person. You better try to get him.
But he never was.
No, I never saw.
Yeah.
No. But, there were just all kinds of things. I can't remember.
Why do you, I guess you were good at it, which is always a good reason why you would like it. But what do you think drew you to doing this or dealing with criminals?
It's the only thing I really knew. But the only thing I could do, I was good at it and I knew it and everybody else knew it. So it was easy for me.
It was never, not uncomfortable, but because you probably have to deal with grisly stuff. But not really. You weren't ever on the crime scenes or anything like that. But
No. I had crime pictures and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no, it doesn't bother me. I had a guy that shot his wife. They just weren't getting along, and all I can remember, she had a huge doll collection, which is a little odd for a woman of that age. But anyway, and he rolled her up in a carpet and called his friend to come over and help him remove the body, and they dumped it off the San Mateo Bridge and flowed to the top, of course, and they were arrested. And he went to state prison, of course, for killing her. But the accomplice, who had never done anything wrong in his whole life before, also went to state prison.
How long did he have to go?
I don't remember the terms.
But it was just because he knew about it and he helped.
He aided and abetted.
Yeah.
So don't help a friend, Andrew.
Especially
if they shoot their wives.
I don't think I'll be helping any murdering friends anytime soon.
Hi, Andrew. It's Nancy. I went to Mystery Theater. It was called American... I don't know what it was called. Anyway, it was nobody liked it particularly. It's called American. I can't even think of the people. I don't even know who the people were that were doing it. But it was presented at the Sundance Festival, but we did not know what the results were. American Mistress is the name of the title. Anyway, if you've run across it, let me know what you think of it. Bye-bye.
Having that structure and taking it seriously brought out the best in Grandma. This was my first Naked Man podcast, and why I had to share it. Years after this recording, when Grandma's health deteriorated and she was living in a hospice, I made my last visit to see her. On my way over with Lily, I bought another $20 Sony voice recorder, this time from video only. My grand idea was that Grandma could use the recorder without me, could tell her stories on the lonely nights when she was feeling well enough to do so, and I would be there to hear them when she was done. Before Lily and I left, we tried our best to show her how to use it. I thought she understood, and I hoped that if not, her orderlies would help her. A few months later, Grandma passed. At her funeral, one of her orderlies from the hospital stopped me. "You must be Andrew," she said. "Mm-hmm." Now, My memory of this incident is fuzzy, but in this moment, I'm imagining that she returned the voice recorder to me. I know at the very least that it was returned to me during this trip. The woman proceeded to tell me how much Grandma talked about me and how often Grandma used the recorder. She would say all the time, "I have to record everything for Andrew. He's expecting it." That's a terrible impression. Sorry, Grandma. But this revelation blew me away. What a gift. But something about it didn't feel real. It took me months to check the recording because I was busy, because I was scared, because I wasn't ready to deal with what was on it or what wasn't. Because what I feared would come true, came true. When I pushed play on the recorder, there was only the chat we had together in the hospice. There were no other recordings. I wish I'd gotten her a better fucking recorder. But I'm glad I still have my grandma, and I'm glad I got to share a piece of her with you. I'm so grateful to you all for listening. The best way to help this show, to help me find an audience, is to rate and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tell all your friends and grandparents. And if you like what I'm doing, if you like what you're hearing, do me a favor. Join my Patreon. Join this community and be part of the conversation. Be empowered in where this show goes from here. The Patreon link is in the description. And if you can't afford to donate, not to worry. I understand. Just reach out and I'll invite you to our Discord so you can join the conversation. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at NakedManPod, and don't hesitate to reach out to us at nakedmanpod@gmail.com. If you have any thoughts and feelings you'd like to share about your grandparents, call and leave a message at the Naked Man phone line at 747-231-7120. Next time on the Naked Man podcast, I'm talking to my friend Alyssa Onofrio about NFTs and online toxicity. In the meantime, as my dad always says, be sweet. This episode of the Naked Man podcast was conceived by Nancy and Andy Greene. The Naked Man is a podcast hosted, created, and produced by me, Andy Greene. All music was composed by Robert Panico, and all graphics were created by Christopher Miles.